Good morning. We'll knock out 2 today as we slowly chip away at catching up. But good morning and welcome to Morning Gospel Fuel with Mr. G. It is Sunday, August 28th, and it is the 22nd Sunday, or 22nd week of Ordinary Time. And it is the feast day of St. Augustine, even though we don't celebrate feast days on Sundays because it's giving glory and honor to God, first and foremost, which saints do anyway. But we don't celebrate it on the church calendar. But anyway, that's different. Anyway, it is the feast day of St. Augustine on August 28th, who I talked about, quote unquote, yesterday. He was the one who's the son of St. Monica, whose feast day was on the 27th. And as we know, I already mentioned St. Augustine, so I don't really need to go into it much further. He was a bishop, and he is one of the doctors of the church. Huge influence in the Western Latin church, especially. And he was around 350 AD, and he died in 430. And he is the patron saint of brewers as well as theologians, which I think is a phenomenal combo. Those crazy Catholics. Anyway, today's gospel is from Luke chapter 14, verse 1 and 7 through 14. Let's begin in the name of the Father, Son, and Spirit. Amen. On a Sabbath, he went to dine at the home of one of the leading Pharisees, and the people there were observing him carefully. He told a parable to those who had been invited, noticing how they were choosing the places of honor at the table. When you are invited by someone to a wedding banquet, do not recline at table in the place of honor. A more distinguished guest than you may have been invited by him, and the host who invited both of you may approach you and say, "Give your place to this man," and then you would proceed with embarrassment to take the lowest place. Rather, when you are invited, go and take the lowest place, so that when the host comes to you, he may say, "My friend," and move up to a higher position. Then you enjoy the esteem of your companions at the table. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but the one who humbles himself will be exalted. Then he said to the host who invited him, "When you hold a lunch or a dinner, do not invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives or your wealthy neighbors, in case they may invite you back and you have repayment. Rather, when you hold a banquet, invite the people, the crippled, the lame, the blind. Blessed indeed will you be because of their inability to repay you, for you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous." So we've got the conduct of the invited guests and the host, and we notice that the very first verse mentions that the Pharisees came, and they came to observe Jesus carefully, to see if he was doing anything wrong, especially on the Sabbath, to judge Jesus, and to see just how bound they were to the law instead of being bound to the heart of God. But anyway, we see this ask and requirement for us to be humble. But he doesn't say that you're never going to be in a place of honor. He just says pretty much cover your bases, and you'd much rather sit somewhere lower and be raised, as opposed to be raised through your own initiative and then be knocked down. So he doesn't say that you're not going to leave a positive impression on people where they want to honor you. In fact, one time me and my classmates were sitting with the Archbishop, and he invited us over for dinner, and he said often that he doesn't like to be the first one to sit down, or at least stand at a table prior to sitting down, because he'll notice that nobody will sit by him because of just the title. And he was very humble about it. And so he would rather just everybody else sit down and then he find an empty spot. But he also recognizes that oftentimes he does have a designated assigned seat. So yeah, I mean, it's just a very great example that I've seen even through the church leadership. And even whenever I went on retreat with a different bishop out in Texas, same exact thing. He made sure that I sat at the head of the table and not him. So very humble, and leaves a positive impression. So if you're meant to get, recognized for something, God will make sure it happens. But we got to make sure that we care more so about being recognized in heaven as opposed to being recognized on earth, because that there demonstrates and reveals the state of our heart. So How is the state of your heart, especially whenever it comes to humility and places of recognition? So have a great day. God bless. Keep it real. In the Father, Son, and Spirit. Amen.